I'll invite you to ask your first question in question time.
Thank you, Madam President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Agriculture, Senator McCarthy. The current shortage of saline IV fluids under your government's watch is also impacting the agricultural sector. What guarantees can the Minister provide to Australian commercial livestock operators and the nation's farmers that their livestock and livelihoods will not be adversely impacted by this shortage?
Thank you, Senator Brockman. Minister McCarthy.
Thank you, President, and I thank the good senator from Western Australia for the question. In fact, just to follow up on something that he might have said 10 seconds before the question, President, we all love beef. We all like to eat sheep, or those of us who like that. And lamb. I mean, it is important. It's good food. It's something that certainly those of us in the Northern Territory like. And
Minister, please resume your seat. Senator Brockman.
The question was about IV saline availability. The minister's got nowhere near it. If she doesn't know the answer, she should sit down.
Thank you, Senator Brockman. I will remind order. I will return the senator to your question. Minister McCarthy.
Thank you, President. I know this is an important question for the senator from Western Australia, and I would say this. We saw what happened during the pandemic, President, when we couldn't get the medical supplies we needed.
That's right.
When we needed them most, which is why the Albanese government is investing to create strong domestic supply chains that support our world-class services.
That's right.
And that includes rebuilding our medical and pharmaceutical manufacturing capacity in this country.
Yep.
And obviously to reach out right across all of the sectors, including the sectors that the good senator from Western Australia is asking a question about. We've dedicated $1.5 billion of the $15 billion National Reconstruction Fund for medical manufacturing. Only the Albanese Labor government believes in making things here and is investing so we aren't always reliant on others in a crisis.
That's right.
Under your watch, Australians faced shortages of vaccines, shortages of COVID tests, shortages of PPE for our frontline workers.
Senator Cash.
So even today, they stand in here and say they want stronger domestic capability, while at the same time their colleagues rant, rave in the opposite place.
Thank you, Senator McCarthy. Just before I call you, Senator Brockman, Senator Ruston and Senator Cash, I called both of you and you completely disregarded my direction. Senator Brockman, first supplementary.
Well, this is a serious question that does impact livelihoods, and I don't think the contempt this Labor government has for the ag sector should be on display in the answers. The current shortage is also impacting Australians' veterinary clinics. Vets are reporting without adequate IV, practices may need to cancel emergency surgery and postpone routine procedures. What guarantees can the minister provide to millions of Australian pet owners that their pets will not be adversely impacted?
Thank you, Senator Brockman. Minister McCarthy.
Thank you, President. Thank you, President. And we won't be lectured on this side about the importance of supply chains. We won't be lectured on this side about the importance of having those supply chains.
Minister, please resume your seat. Senator Wong. I have been attempting to call the chamber to order. Minister McCarthy, please continue.
Thank you, President. And I do pick up on the senator's question there in terms of the way we react and treat the farming industry. I disagree completely. No. Senator Ruston, if you'd let me finish.
Senator Ruston.
The interjections.
So rude. So rude.
Minister, please resume your seat. Senator Wong and Senator Ruston, it's my role to make sure the Senate is orderly. I will admit I am not always successful at that, but I would ask senators to stop their interjections. Minister McCarthy.
Thank you, President. I do pick up on the senator's question there in terms of our work and the legislation that Senator Watt brought in regards to live sheep exports. They don't want to hear. They don't want to hear. Don't want to know. They come in here
Minister
saying
McCarthy,
that we're not interested.
Please resume your seat. Senator Ruston.
I just would, on relevance, President, maybe the senator might like the question reread. We were talking about pets.
Senator Ruston, I do remind you and other senators in this place there was a preamble to that question, which was about the government's regard for the ag sector, and the minister is perfectly entitled to address that part of her question. Yes, Senator Wong.
The opposition consistently interject, particularly on this minister, and she was responding. She was responding to an interjection, so you can't have it both ways.
Thank you, Senator Wong. I have addressed Senator Ruston's point of order. Senator Brockman, second supplementary.
Will the minister guarantee that no animal, great or small, will be adversely impacted by the government's failure to appropriately manage this IV fluid shortage that they have known about for more than a year?
Thank you, Senator Brockman. Minister, I'm not going to call the minister until there's silence across the chamber. Order. Order. Senator Davey, when you are quite finished. Minister McCarthy.
Thank you, President. I can certainly say this to the good senator from Western Australia, that we have a minister here in the federal government who is very, very dedicated to wanting to ensure there is care and concern right across the country. And I think you coming into this chamber wanting to cause fights over things that are totally unnecessary. We are certainly very supportive of the farming industry, and we certainly will take on any of those issues. And I know that the minister will. You don't even want to listen. You don't even want to listen.
So rude.
You know, you're so rude. So rude.
Minister McCarthy. Just a moment, Senator Birmingham. I'm waiting for silence. Senator Birmingham.
President, a point of order on direct relevance. The question was very clearly specific about IV fluid shortages and the impact on animals and veterinary practices. The minister, in more than half the time available, has come nowhere close to veterinary practice, to animals, let alone to IV fluid shortages. Please draw her to the question.
Thank you, Senator Birmingham. Just a moment, Minister McCarthy. I would very happily draw the minister to the question, but I also note that there have been a number of interjections which the senator is also entitled to answer. So I suggest, if you want the question answered, control the interjections. Minister McCarthy.
Well, President, as I was saying before, I was rudely interrupted by the other side. We do have a minister who is very prepared to meet with the sector, to work with the sector, and I just repeat, for those opposite who don't want to listen, that we do believe in investing here. Unlike you, with the
thank you, Minister. The time has expired. Senator Coney.
Thanks, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Minister Wong. How is the government addressing the cost of living challenges while building a better and fairer education system, from early childhood education all the way through to free TAFE and HECS debt relief? Can the minister also detail particularly how the Albanese government is helping early childhood educators get a pay rise while also keeping fees down for many working families?
Minister Wong.
Thank you, and thank you to Senator Coney for that excellent question. And what I would say is we understand that Australians are struggling with cost of living challenges. We know that, which is why this government is working so hard to deliver assistance and support to Australians who are struggling with the cost of living, looking at all the ways we can help: tax cuts for all Australian taxpayers, energy bill relief for every household, cheaper medicines and more bulk building, HECS relief for everyone with a student debt, and, of course, fee-free TAFE, support for people from the outer suburbs and regions to go to university, and getting wages moving. We are also provisioning for higher wages for aged care and childcare workers. Of course, what have the opposition who come in here talking about cost of living actually done? Well, what they've really done is oppose cost of living relief at every chance they get. Every chance they get. Not only that, the ideas they put forward would cost more. Mr Dutton's plans would mean higher power prices, higher grocery prices, higher taxes. But there is one thing that would be lower under Mr Dutton. There'd be one thing that would be lower. You got it, Sterling. Wages. Wages would definitely be low under the Liberals and Nationals. You see, Labor wants Australians to earn more and keep more of what they earn, including early childhood educators and care workers, and we're making sure they're fairly paid by funding a 15% wage increase, when we're also working to ensure that the cost is not passed on to families. The wage increase, President, is tied to a commitment from centres to limit fee increases, so better for parents, better for educators, better for children. And this is on top of our cheaper childcare reforms that have cut the cost of childcare for 1.2 million families. You don't like the truth, do you, Senator Henderson? According to the ACCC, childcare costs were cut by 11% following our reforms. 11%,
Thank
Senator
you,
Henderson.
Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Ciccone, first supplementary.
Thanks again, President. In my home state of Victoria and right across Australia, including here in Parliament House, I've met so many hard-working early childhood educators and parents who speak of what an important role they play. Now, what will the government's decision to lift the wages of early childhood education and care workers mean for the workers and the industry more broadly?
Minister Wong.
Thank you, and thank you to the Senator Ciccone for his supplementary. And like all of us on this side of the chamber, he knows early childhood educators deserve a pay rise. And the Productivity Commission has made it clear if we don't increase wages in the sector, we won't have a workforce. So under our government, the Albanese government's plan, an average worker receiving the award rate will get an extra $103 per week in pay by the end of the year, increasing to $155 extra by December 2025, a wage increase that will apply to workers in OSH, outside school hours care services, benefiting parents of school-aged children too. Of course, we take a different view to the opposition. We don't believe that we should keep wages low by design. And of course, we have Senator Rennick, who's on the record on these issues. When Labor announced these changes, he said paying early educators more was going to destroy the family unit. Wow. Is this the Coalition's policy?
Thank you, Minister. Senator Rennick.
I've offered the Prime Minister and the Minister for Education a debate about this issue.
That is not a point of order, Senator Rennick. Please resume your seat. Senator Rennick, I've asked you to sit down. Order. Senator Ciccone, second supplementary.
Thanks, President. I thank the Minister for that response. Now, how is the Albanese Labor government supporting Australians to develop the skills and the capabilities required for the jobs of the future, while also providing cost of living relief?
Thank you, Senator Ciccone. Minister Wong.
Thank you, and thank you for the supplementary, Senator Ciccone, because it does articulate one of the policy challenges that the government at this time faces. We have to address cost of living challenges, but we also have to do the work that was never done under the Coalition, which is to set Australia up for a prosperous future. By 2050, Australia will need a workforce where 4 out of 5 people have a TAFE university qualification, and if we don't achieve that, we will be poorer, we will be less productive than we otherwise would be. And that is why, through fee-free TAFE, we're funding 500,000 courses in priority areas, care, defence, construction, manufacturing, to name a few, doubling the number of university study hubs to help students in regions and outer suburbs. Looking forward to the National Party being supportive of the Labor government's university study hubs. We're introducing PRAC payments to help nursing, teaching and social workers, and we are cutting HECS debt for more than 3 million Australians.
Thank you, Senator Wong. Senator Davey.
Thank you. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for the Environment, Senator McAllister. Minister, on what date or dates has Minister Plibersek met directly with any members of the Wiradjuri Traditional Owners Central West Aboriginal Corporation. Well, I question whether it's Wiradjuri or Wiradjuri. It's actually spelt differently, so just putting that on the record. Including in relation to the issues associated with their Section 10 application against Regis McPhillamy Gold Mine project. If she has not met directly with them, can you let us know who has met with them on behalf of the government and on what date or dates?
Thank you, Senator Davey. Minister McAllister.
Thank you, President, and thank you for the question, Senator. So I understand, Senator, that your question relates to the decision recently taken under the ATSIPA Act by Minister Plibersek in relation to a project in the vicinity of Orange, and it's in response, as you say, to information provided to her by a very large number of documents. So, well, can I provide this indication? This decision, as has been communicated, does not mean that the gold mine cannot go ahead. It simply means that an Aboriginal heritage site—
please resume your seat. Senator Davey.
Point of order, relevance. I'm specifically asking for dates of meetings held, not what the project is or whether a gold mine can proceed. Dates.
Thank you, Senator Davey. I will draw the minister to your question. Minister McAllister.
Thanks very much, President. And I understand that the senator is seeking information about the approach taken by the minister in considering the application. And I'm advised that she carefully considered thousands of pages of documentation. And that is the legal obligation of the minister, of course. In these matters and all of the matters that come before Minister Plibersek, she has made it very clear that her first responsibility is to apply the law and to do so in ways that produce sound decisions. And I think that members on all sides of this chamber appreciate that Minister Plibersek exercises all the care and diligence that you would expect when legal applications, are put before her. As has, I think, been indicated to you in interjections, the level of detail you are specifically seeking in terms of dates and times and specific meetings is not information that I presently have with me.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Davey.
Thank you. Well, Minister, in your briefing notes there, given that following this news breaking last Friday, the lead applicant, Nairi Reynolds, said that, and I quote, "More than often we get told our knowledge isn't traditional enough and that we make things up." Is it in your briefings whether the minister did any due diligence to establish that none of the claims in the application were confected or fabricated, given it was done by the Environmental Defender's Office?
Thank you, Senator Davey. Minister McAllister.
I reject actually the premise of your question, and as I indicated in my answer to your primary question, Minister Plibersek, of course, conducts all diligence necessary to make decisions when matters are before her. And in doing so, she of course relies on the advice from her department, which is exactly the practice that would have been in place when ministers took similar decisions in your government, in the government that the coalition was part of. Now, as has been the point that I've made in these questions earlier in the week, is that this decision is very similar to a Section 10 decision that was made by Minister Ley when she was the Environment Minister. And Minister Ley made a decision in relation to the same Act, in relation to the same legislation that has been in place since the 1980s, in relation to cultural heritage.
Minister McAllister, the time has expired. Senator Davies, second supplementary.
So what information does the government possess about how many complaints have been made to the Office of the Registrar of Indigenous Corporations about the activities of the Wiradjuri Traditional Owners Central West Aboriginal Corporation?
Thank you, Senator Davey, for your question. Minister McAllister.
Senator, I think I have— oh, please.
Minister Wong.
Trying to understand the question, but if I'm not sure that is within this minister's portfolio.
I'm happy to ask Senator Davey to repeat the question, and you're not seeking the call, Senator Birmingham. Or Senator Davey, perhaps you could just reiterate the question, and then we can look at the portfolio.
Without debating, the question goes directly to the due diligence conducted and whether the minister—
the question. Thank you, Senator Davey.
Well, the question is, what information does the government possess about how many complaints have been made to the Office of the Registrar of Indigenous Corporations about the activities of the Wiradjuri Traditional Owners Central West Aboriginal Corporation?
Thank you, Senator Davey. Minister Wong.
Senator Davey, I will concede if I'm wrong, but I don't think that that's an entity within the representing minister's portfolio.
Senator Birmingham.
President, just on the point of order, and I think Senator Davey did clarify at the commencement of restating the question, which does go to the due diligence undertaken by the minister that Minister McAllister is representing in the decision that was made, and that due diligence should extend indeed to awareness, given the representations of this entity, of the credibility of that entity.
I will seek the advice of Minister Wong.
With respect, that submission is not on point. The office that is referred to is not in this minister's portfolio. I understand it's in the portfolio. Well, yeah, not everything in government is with one minister. I'll take the interjection. As I understand, Minister McCarthy has said that's in her portfolio. Yeah, you have to change it.
Order. I am advised by the clerk. The question does go to ORIC. That's my interpretation, not what the clerk said to me. Therefore, it is not within Senator McAllister's portfolio. But as I have always done on occasion when senators ask questions outside of a portfolio, I'm happy to ask Senator McAllister to make a statement, if she wishes, about Senator Davey's question. Senator Davey?
Thank you. Well, I will reframe the question. Was the minister aware of any complaints that may have been made about the activities of the Wiradjuri Traditional Owners Central West Aboriginal Corporation?
Thank you, Senator Davey. Minister McAllister.
Thanks very much, President, and thank you to Senator Davey for rephrasing her question. I can say this, that the minister took evidence from a number of groups, including, of course, the Orange Local Aboriginal Land Council and the Wiradjuri Traditional Owners Central West Aboriginal Corporation. I am aware that evidence was provided by at least both of those groups. The minister's obligations in all matters before her are to observe the law, and as she has made clear on many occasions in relation to many matters, she is diligent in her approach to those issues. And the minister has always considered that her first obligation is to take these decisions in a way that produces a sound legal decision, and I am sure that she has done so on this occasion also.
Thank you, Minister McAllister. Senator Waters.
Thanks, President. My question is, I believe, to the Minister representing the Minister for Social Services, Minister McAllister, but I'm also happy if Minister Gallagher thinks it's more in her patch. There have been now at least 45 women murdered this year, and the rates of violence against women are increasing. The women's safety sector has repeatedly called for $1 billion each year for frontline services, including legal services, to ensure that no one who seeks help has to be turned away back to violence. Today, the Domestic, Family and Sexual Violence Commissioner warned that the women's safety sector is already buckling, and she said that when there's an increase in reporting, frontline services need more support to meet increased demand. When will the Albanese government commit $1 billion per year to properly resource frontline services?
Thank you, Senator Waters. Minister McAllister.
Thank you, President. Well, we know that too many women are killed by their current or former intimate partner. And the AIC's latest data update indicates that there were 43 female victims of intimate partner homicide in 2023-24. And it's a pretty stark reminder of the human cost of this violence. And it is why the government is deeply committed to addressing this national crisis. And in the 2 years since coming to government, we have taken the crisis of men's violence against women seriously, including a range of measures, including introducing paid family and domestic violence leave. You ask about funding. Funding in the 2024-25 budget brings government investment to over $3.4 billion to support women's safety and implement the National Plan to End Violence Against Women and Children. That plan was developed in partnership with the sector and with victim survivors and was agreed with all states and territories. And that funding brings together the investments that we have made across our budgets in support of the National Plan. We've been focused on supporting economic security so women don't have to choose between poverty and violence. We've been investing in housing so women know they have a place to go. We have been strengthening the legal system's response to gendered violence, implementing all of the 55 Respect at Work changes and putting a positive duty in the Sex Discrimination Act to prevent sexual harassment. We have been working with the states and territories to fund frontline services. We've extended the National Partnership on Frontline Service Funding and provided funding to states for more than 500 more frontline service workers, and we are sharpening the focus on prevention so we can end violence in a generation.
Thank you, Senator McAllister. Senator Waters, first supplementary.
Thanks, President. As the Commissioner said in her address, First Nations women are 33 times more likely to be hospitalised and 6 times more likely to die as a result of violence. Will the government commit to working with First Nations communities to develop an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander violence prevention framework for men and boys, as my colleague Senator Cox recommended in her additional comments in the Missing and Murdered First Nations Women Inquiry report?
Thank you, Senator Waters. Minister McAllister.
Thank you very much, President. And the government appreciates greatly the work that has been done through the committee that Senator Cox contributed to with such distinction that I understand was chaired by Senator Scarr. We appreciate that the statistics and the experiences of First Nations women in relation to violence are unacceptable and need to be addressed. It's on that basis that an action plan has been developed and agreed with First Nations women as part of the National Plan to End Violence Against Women. And there is the government has a continuing commitment to work with First Nations women to improve this in a collaborative way that meets their needs and their priorities.
Minister McAllister. Senator Waters, second supplementary.
Thanks, President. The Commissioner also said today that sexual violence is often left out of the conversation, and yet there's been an 11% increase in sexual violence in the last year. Will the government commit to increasing funding specifically for sexual violence services? And can you please answer this question? 1 out of 3 is better than none.
Thank you, Senator Waters. Minister McAllister. Order.
On this topic.
Order.
Hey, on this topic.
Order. Senator Watts and Senator Cox. Order. Senator Cox, I've called you to order. Minister McAllister.
Well, no woman or girl should have to experience sexual violence in their life, and the government is leading national efforts to prevent sexual violence and support the victim and survivors who experience it. We are partnering with states and territories to strengthen and harmonise the laws in relation to sexual assault and consent, and we're providing $14.7 million in the 23-24 budget to strengthen how the criminal justice system responds to sexual assault. We are funding an Australian Law Reform Commission inquiry into justice responses to sexual violence, and that's due to report at the beginning of next year. A lived experience expert advisory group comprising victim survivors and their advocates has been established to ensure that victim survivors—
Thank you, Minister. Senator Waters.
Point of order. Look, I am sorry, but I ask these questions because I actually do want to know the answer, and I appreciate the context, but I do already know all of that. My question was, will you commit to increasing funding specifically for sexual violence services?
I believe the minister is being relevant, and I will listen carefully to the remainder of the question. Minister McAllister. Senator Waters and Senator Cox. Please continue, Minister.
We are increasing funding to services for women who experience sexual violence, and we are progressing important reforms, particularly in the criminal justice system, so that the experience of complainants can improve.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Green.
Thanks so much, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Northern Australia, Senator McCarthy. Minister, as senators from Northern Australia, you and I both know how important the NAIF is. And my question is, how is the Northern Australia Infrastructure Facility unlocking economic opportunities in the north? And why did the government announce an independent review of the NAIF?
Minister McCarthy.
Thank you, President. And I know the members opposite are very excited to hear about this too. A strong north is a strong Australia, as Senator Green knows. The Albanese Labor government is committed to creating secure jobs across Northern Australia and empowering the region to drive our nation's future prosperity. A centrepiece of that vision is the Northern Australia Infrastructure Facility, which we increased to $7 billion. Last month, the NAIF reached a significant milestone with $2 billion
Please continue, Minister.
now invested in infrastructure projects across the north. A further $2.4 billion has been committed. The 32 projects now backed by the NAIF are transforming the north and are on track to create more than 18,000 jobs, President, across the country.
The NAIF is working at last.
The NAIF also has 31 projects. I can tell everyone's riveted. This is wonderful. In its pre-investment pipeline, with the potential to create thousands more jobs across Northern Australia. Everyone move north. On Monday, the Minister for Northern Australia announced an independent review of the NAIF as required by law. The independent review panel will soon start engaging with a range of key stakeholders to ensure the recommendations, even Senator Smith's excited about moving north, put forward to government are robust and reflect the views of the north. I encourage senators to contribute to this important review, but I recommend those opposite engage meaningfully, instead of attacking an opportunity to ensure the NAIF continues creating secure jobs and economic opportunities for Northern Australians.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Green, first supplementary.
Thank you so much, President. That's wonderful news, Minister. I thank you for outlining how the independent review of the Northern Australia Infrastructure Facility will ensure that it continues creating secure jobs in the north. How is the NAIF supporting Indigenous businesses and boosting employment for Indigenous Australians?
Thank you, Senator Green. Minister McCarthy.
Thank you, President, and I thank the senator for the supplementary question. A priority of the NAIF is improving First Nations outcomes and contributing to closing the gap. And all projects backed by the NAIF need to create and implement an Indigenous engagement strategy that is tailored to the aspirations of the local community. NAIF's proponents have so far created more than 1,100 jobs for Indigenous Australians, and projects have spent over $80 million supporting Indigenous businesses. For example, the NAIF has provided a $150 million loan to Charles Darwin University's Education and Community Precinct, which reports 12.5% Indigenous employment. The Minister for Northern Australia has also instructed NAIF to deepen its investment in social infrastructure, particularly housing that benefits First Nations communities.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Green, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. I thank the Minister for outlining how the Northern Australia Infrastructure Facility is increasing Indigenous employment and backing businesses owned by Aboriginal Australians. Minister, how is the NAIF helping drive Australia's transition towards a net zero economy by also supporting renewable energy and critical minerals projects?
Thank you, Senator Green. Minister McAllister. I beg your pardon. I'll get the max right. Minister McCarthy.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Senator Green. And I might also make mention of Mackay, because we do have a member in the gallery from Mackay, which is incorporated in Northern Australia, so welcome. The Albanese Labor government updated the NAIF's investments mandate this year to better align its focus with our national priorities, including achieving Australia's net zero and energy transition goals. The NAIF has approved loans to 3 renewable energy projects expected to create more than 900 jobs, and 6 critical minerals projects forecast to create 2,500 jobs. So, Senators, let's get on board and support the NAIF.
Thank you, Senator McCarthy. Senator Hanson.
Thank you very much. My question is to the Minister for Aboriginal Affairs, Minister McCarthy. On Monday, Senator Roberts asked you if the Albanese Labor government supports the Miles State Labor government secretly giving away freehold land to Aboriginal corporations with little or no community consultation beforehand. You said there are no secret deals going on, there's no secretiveness in any of this. Could you please share with the Senate the details of the land transfer plans that are currently underway in Queensland in the towns of Augathallo, Boonaroo, Croydon, Duchess, Eurong, Happy Valley, Laura, Maryborough, Mount Isa, Rainbow Beach, Riverheads, Roma, Thargomindah, Theodore and Tabia?
Thank you, Senator Hanson. Minister McCarthy.
Thank you, President. And I certainly acknowledge the question from One Nation, which continues again in the same form of implying secrecy. I answered the question on Monday, and I repeat again to the Senate that the work of the Queensland Government is very critical in terms of all of those places that you've mentioned, Senator Hanson, and I don't know why you don't speak to the Queensland Government. Yeah. Why don't you speak to the Indigenous Affairs Minister for Queensland?
You
might even be able to get a briefing about all of those particular areas of land. But I will just point out, please, One Nation, do not demean, do not weaponise this Queensland election against the First Nations people of Queensland.
Thank you, Senator McCarthy. Senator Hanson, first supplementary.
Well, you claim there is no secretiveness or secret deals, so please explain where I can go to read the details of these land transfer deals. Please assist the people of Queensland by informing them where this information has been published or presented in any way to the public.
Thank you, Senator Hanson. Minister McCarthy.
Thank you, President. I'm very pleased to repeat my response here. One Nation, you are very welcome to go to the Queensland Government to find out the information that you are seeking on matters that are impacted by the Queensland Government.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Hanson, second supplementary.
Don't forget, Minister McCarthy, you made the comment there was no secretiveness. So either you are very naive, ill-advised or misleading the Senate, because Queensland Premier Stephen Miles has stated that these applications—
Senator Hanson, please resume your seat. Minister.
I ask that the Senator from Queensland withdraw her comment, which is impugning on my character.
Thank you. Senator Hanson, if you would withdraw the comments you made in particular around the minister.
Oh, look, I'll withdraw.
Thank you. Please
So,
continue.
Queensland Premier Stephen Miles has stated that these applications under Queensland's Aboriginal Land Act are treated confidentially. Also, former LNP President, now Mayor of Goondiwindi Council, told me it was confidential and they couldn't inform the public. If the details of these deals are being kept confidential by Labor, isn't that the definition of secretiveness?
Thank you, Senator Hanson. Minister McCarthy.
President, I refer to my first answer, and that is One Nation is very welcome to approach the Queensland Government and the Indigenous Affairs Minister as is appropriate in these situations.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Scarr.
Thank you, Madam President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Infrastructure, Transport, Regional Development and Local Government, Senator McCarthy. On Monday last week, 12 August, during question time, in answer to a question on the use of Commonwealth infrastructure funding to cover cost blowouts in the context of CFMEU lawlessness, you said, and I quote, "The Minister has also embedded new assurances and protections in the Federation funding agreement that the Commonwealth has negotiated with the states, which was finalised on 11 August. The very next day, Tuesday, 13 August 2024, in answer to another question, you repeated those exact same words. Minister, do you stand by the answer that you told this parliament not once but twice last week that the agreement was finalised on 11 August?
Thank you, Senator Scarr. Minister McCarthy.
Thank you, President, and I thank Senator Scarr for the question. Senator Scarr, I certainly stand by the comments that I've been advised on in relation to the infrastructure portfolio.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Scarr, first supplementary.
Well, Senator McCarthy, I note that you were given an opportunity to provide some additional comment, but you've chosen to stand behind your answer. I ask you to carefully consider that answer. If the Commonwealth has in fact negotiated the new Land Transport Infrastructure Federation funding agreement with the states, which you say was finalised on 11 August 2024, why isn't it on the website? And how many states have actually signed it?
Thank you, Senator Scarr. Minister McCarthy.
Thank you, President. I see what this is about. You're worried about a website, that there's no details, according to you, on a website, Senator Scarr. Well, let me say, no, they don't want to hear. They don't want to hear the answer. You ask a question and you don't want to listen. So you don't want to hear, Senator for Tasmania. You clearly don't care about it either. Let me tell— Sorry, President.
Order.
Made final.
Senator Ruston, which part of order does not apply to you? Senator McKenzie. Minister McCarthy, please continue.
So I can see the interest is about the website, President. And if I go back to the primary question, the answer that I gave last week still remains the same, that the Commonwealth has negotiated with the states, which was finalised on August 11.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Scarr, second supplementary.
Thank you, Madam President. My interest is not in the website, it's whether or not the agreement has been finalised. And that means to me that each of the states have actually agreed to the agreement. Otherwise, how else could it be finalised? So, Minister, could you please explain whether or not all of the states have actually agreed to the infrastructure funding agreement? And if not, which ones have not?
Thank you, Senator Scarr. Minister McCarthy.
Thank you, President. I will pick up on the fact that you said you're not worried about a website. You actually are, Senator Scarr. You actually raised that in your first supplementary. But however, let's not put the facts in the way of a good story here. The FFA outlines the states and territories' responsibility to ensure value for money for public funds. The Minister has embedded new assurances and protections in the Federation funding agreement, which you do not want to hear.
Please. Order across the chamber. Senator, I realise you're on your feet, Senator Scarr, but I would appreciate it if senators, particularly on your side, but not solely on your side, came to order. Senator Scarr.
Relevance, Madam President. Which states have agreed to the agreement?
Thank you. I do believe the minister is being relevant, and I'll continue to listen carefully.
Thank you, President. The advice I have given, which I continue to give, is the advice that I've given you, Senator Scarr. And if I am provided with further advice on that, I'll bring it back to you.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Tyrrell.
Thank you, President. My question is for the Minister
Senator
representing—
Tyrrell, I'm sorry, please resume your seat. We have moved on. I had a senator asking a question and you were still interjecting, particularly you, Senator Ruston, about the previous question. I'd ask you to listen in silence or leave the chamber. Senator Tyrrell, could you start again, please? Thank you.
Thank you, President. Okay, my question is for the Minister representing the Minister for Health and Aged Care, Senator Gallagher. Aged care facilities are struggling to meet care minute targets, especially those in cities and regional centres. Media reports show significant issues in the aged care workforce and around how each person's 200 daily aged care minutes are distributed. Since March 2021, the government has provided a certification letter to meet regulatory impact statement requirements for the adoption of mandatory care minutes for aged care residents. But this process has not been evaluated in all that time. So essentially, the government has issued a letter to say it followed the rules when setting care time requirements, but there is no public evidence to show this regulation is actually working properly. So how do we know a regulation process was followed for aged care minutes when there has been no evaluation on the regulation change?
Thank you, Senator Tyrrell. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President, and I thank Senator Tyrrell for the question, and it relates to the improvements that we've been putting in place into aged care around additional requirements for care minutes for elderly Australians. This is a relatively recent change, as you know, to staffing requirements in aged care, and the feedback that the government is getting from consumers and providers is that it is making a difference across the aged care sector. I'm not certain, and I don't have the details in front of me, on the evaluation of the care minutes in residential aged care, although I would believe that it would be being done. I'll just see if I can quickly skim and see if there is a requirement or a time frame. But certainly the improvements, the care minutes have improved the quality of care going to residents in aged care facilities. The government is, of course, watching this as part of our response to improving care in aged care, and we will continue to do so, and I'll see if there's further information I can provide.
Senator Tyrrell, first supplementary.
President, while statistics released by the government show that half of Tasmania's residential aged care facilities are not meeting their care minute targets, the Office of Independent Analysis hasn't looked at the regulatory impact statement requirements between 2021 to 2023, which makes me think there's been no quality analysis of the regulations change to aged care minutes. Another certificate has already been issued to support the government's planned increase. If we know the system isn't working now due to workforce issues, where are the extra staff coming from to support these extra 15 minutes?
Thank you, Senator Tyrrell. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. Well, and I thank Senator Tyrrell for the question and for her ongoing interest in aged care, particularly in her state of Tasmania. I don't think you can just see care minutes in isolation from the other work that's being done in aged care to improve the sustainability of the sector and to encourage staff into the sector. For example, our support for the aged care pay increase is linked to attracting and retaining staff in the aged care sector. You know, if you are getting better paid and better recognition for the work that you would do, that you're not going to see the separation rates and the changes or the loss of staff through that time. But it is an adjustment for the sector, as you say, that some areas are not able to meet those requirements, and that's something that we're going to have to continue to focus on. But certainly in my feedback that I've got from aged care providers, the wage increase has been the single biggest thing that's changed the workforce situation for them.
Has expired. Senator Tyrrell, second supplementary.
Thank you. The government's $2.2 billion investment in aged care is just a stopgap. It won't touch the more than 13,000 registered nurses and 32,000 personal care workers we need to fix the workforce gap. The government has had more than 2 years to get this right. 2 years to support the workforce, 2 years to evaluate the regulation, a regulation you're about to add an extra 15 minutes to. Even the Australian National Audit Office said there was no evaluation strategy in October last year. Why is there still no publicly available information on the evaluation of the regulation?
Thank you, Senator Tyrrell. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. Well, I'm happy to take further information on that. My expectation and the leadership that's been shown by the Minister for Aged Care will be that these reforms to aged care would be scrutinised and evaluated over time, but that they are relatively new reforms. And I would again say that the extra investment that you cite going into aged care is a very small part of the extra investment. In terms of wages, it was significantly more than that in order to retain and attract people into the roles that you speak about, including for registered nurses. So, yes, there is more to do, but we have invested significantly in the workforce and in reforms, and we're continuing to discuss further opportunities for aged care reform during this term of parliament.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Bilyk.
Thank you. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Climate Change and Energy, Minister McAllister. Since the election of the Albanese government, Australia has returned to being a constructive partner in the effort to reduce global emissions by investing in clean, cheap, renewable energy. Could the Minister please explain to the chamber what actions the government is taking to seize the economic opportunities afforded by international effort to reduce climate emissions?
Thank you, Senator Bilyk. Minister McAllister.
Thank you, President. Well, the international community is moving to act on climate change, and the Albanese government is committed to working with our partners in our region, and in particular in the Pacific, to address climate change through the Paris framework. And Australia, under the Albanese government, has a serious plan, an actual plan, to transform our economy and meet our commitments. And on coming to government, we lifted our emissions target by more than half, from 26% to 43% by 2030, and alongside our net zero commitment, we made those targets law. We made them law, because that is what will provide businesses and the community with certainty. And as uncomfortable as it is for those opposite, business welcomes this approach. When we passed the Climate Change Act, the Business Council of Australia said this: Prime Minister Albanese and Minister Bowen have brought Australia a step closer to ending the climate wars that have put a handbrake on progress and become a serious economic barrier. And we've acted on those targets with policies like the safeguard mechanism, like our reliable renewables plan that's backed in by the capacity investment scheme, by new vehicle efficiency standards, and by Hydrogen Head Start and a future made in Australia. And the November
Minister
report—
McAllister, please resume your seat. Senator Whish-Wilson, I have called order at least 3 times. It applies to you in particular. Minister McAllister, please continue.
The November report from the Climate Change Authority, which didn't yet reflect all of those initiatives, showed that 43% by 2030 is within reach. We are now on track for at least 42% emissions reductions by 2030. And we take this path because we know that the world's path to net zero is an unprecedented economic opportunity for our country.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Bilyk, first supplementary.
Thank you. We know that the Albanese government's Reliable Renewables plan is investing in reliable energy sources while supporting Australia's climate targets. Could the minister explain how the government's Reliable Renewables plan is securing Australia's energy needs and ensuring Australians have access to cheap, reliable energy?
Thank you, Senator Bilyk. Minister McAllister.
Thank you, President, and I thank the senator for her question. Anyone serious about energy reliability has a serious plan to replace coal and gas and get more firmed renewables into the grid. Anyone serious about tackling Australia's emissions has a serious plan to get more renewables into the grid. And anyone serious about electricity prices would follow the advice of experts and choose the least cost option, not the highest cost option, in thinking about our energy future. We are already halfway to our 82% renewables target in the national electricity market. Renewables have increased by 25% and we have record investment in batteries and storage. It is an ambitious target. There is more to do, and it's why we're backing it in with an expanded capacity investment scheme. And it is not convenient for those opposite, but our Reliable Renewables plan is working and it is bringing more renewables online.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Bilyk, second supplementary.
Thank you, Minister. It's good to hear how the government's taking action to put downward pressure on prices and reduce emissions at the same time, even if those opposite don't want to hear it. Could the minister explain why it is taking this approach to reducing Australia's emissions?
Thank you, Senator Bilyk. Minister McAllister.
Thank you, President. Well, our approach, unusually it seems, is informed by experts, and we actually listen when they tell us that the optimal path for future investment is solar and wind, firmed by batteries and storage and supported by gas. We want to assure the reliability and affordability of our energy system, and we want to grasp the opportunities of the clean energy transformation. And we are not taking the approach of those opposite who have become very, very quiet. Those are the people who would see Australia backslide on our targets and sit outside of the Paris Agreement with Iran, with Libya and with Yemen.
What is your policy?
We certainly won't be taking the approach of waiting decades to build expensive, risky nuclear reactors that experts say will provide just 3.7% of the power that Australia needs. We just cannot wait decades for that.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Nampijinka-Price.
Thank you, Madam President. My question is to the Minister for Indigenous Australians, Senator McCarthy. Minister, media reports this week detailed an atrocious attack on CLP candidate Yana Thompson in the Northern Territory election on the false basis that she is out to wind back opportunities for Indigenous Australians. Minister, do you condemn the stereotype that all Indigenous political candidates need to be left-leaning in order to serve the interests of Indigenous Australians?
Thank you, Senator Nampijinka-Price. Senator Wong.
I beg your pardon? Do you want to? You should withdraw that.
Order.
You should withdraw that.
Order. I'm not sure, Senator Wong. Senator Wong, I am more than willing to ask a senator to withdraw, but I didn't hear a comment, and I'm not sure who you were referring to. Order. I'm not sure which senator you were. Senator Mackenzie, in the interests of the goodwill of the chamber, I would ask you to withdraw a remark.
I withdraw.
Thank you, Senator Mackenzie. And you're on a point of order, Senator.
Point of order. I don't believe the question relates in any way to the minister's portfolio of affairs of the or matters of administration under the federal.
Order.
Senator Rennick, if you'd like a question, we're happy to advocate for you.
Yeah.
Minister,
why doesn't Simon ever give you a question?
Order. I am advised, Senator Nampijinka-Price, that your question doesn't go to Minister McCarthy's portfolio, but I am happy to ask Minister McCarthy if she wishes to make a statement. And Senator Gallagher, are you on a point of order?
Yes, I am. I just again seek your guidance on Standing Order 73(1)H, because I believe that Senator Nampijinka-Price's question asks for an expression of opinion, and that that is certainly under that standing order. Says questions shall not contain.
Yes. Order. Minister Gallagher, it is more that it doesn't go to the minister's portfolio. But as I said, I've invited the minister. If she wishes to make a statement, she may, or I can ask Senator Nampijinka-Price for a second supplementary. Well, there can't be a supplementary to that question, so I'm not quite sure where that leaves us, but I will. Did you wish to make a comment?
I'd certainly thank you, President, and thank you, Senator Nampijinka-Price. I certainly would say that First Nations candidates, wherever they are, good luck. The Northern Territory election is this weekend, and I'm looking forward to getting back home. I'd certainly say that in terms of any intimidation or any tactics that are going on that's being alleged by Senator Price is absolutely incorrect. In fact, if anything, President, I often wonder whether Senator Price might be running for one of those seats herself. Yeah. I noticed on the How to Vote card in Namatjira It has.
Senator McCarthy, you cannot.
It has Senator Price on there.
Minister, you cannot
Are
use
you running
props.
for the Northern Territory
Minister
election?
McCarthy, please resume your seat. Order. Order. I'm sure you're aware that props are out of order. Order across the chamber. I have Senator Mackenzie on her feet. Order. Order. Senator Mackenzie.
Thank you, Madam President. I believe the use of props in the chamber is not...
I have addressed that matter, but you're quite correct. Order. Senator Nampijinka-Price, come to order. I am advised, Senator Nampijinka-Price, by the clerk that if there were portfolio issues which came out of Minister McCarthy's response, you may address a first supplementary around that. Senator.
Thank you, President. Minister, as part of these media reports included the allegations involving a former Labor pre-selected candidate and current Northern Land Council chair, Matt Ryan, in an attempt to discredit Ms Thompson.
Senator Nampijinka-Price, please resume your seat. Senator Watt, I was going to listen to the entire question before ascertaining whether it went to portfolio matters. Thank you. Senator Nampijinka-Price, would you like to continue? But it does need to address Minister McCarthy's portfolio areas, but please continue.
Thank you. Well, given that the Land Council is a portfolio area for the minister, the conduct of the chair of the Northern Land Council in an attempt to discredit Ms Thompson...
that's time now, Senator Nampijinka-Price, and that doesn't... please resume your seat. The mere mention of the Land Council doesn't go to the portfolio because the majority of the question was about a candidate. Order. Order. Senator Wong.
The President is ruling. So I'd ask the opposition and the Leader of the Opposition to perhaps... Well...
Order. Did you want to... Okay. So, in the same vein as the first question did not go to portfolio matters, the mere mention of the Land Council does not go to portfolio matters because the bulk of the question went to candidates for election. Senator Birmingham.
On your point of order, the supplementary question was actually quite specific to actions and reports and comments attributed to the chair of the Northern Land Council. This was not peripheral to the nature of the question, but core to the nature of the supplementary question and distinctly within the portfolio responsibilities of the minister.
I am advised that it doesn't look like the first supplementary question relates to the primary question. I am not aware of whether someone is a chair of the Land Council or not, but what I heard was a question around a candidate. Just before I finish, Senator Birmingham, I am, however, happy to review the Hansard and come back to the chamber, if that satisfies. Yeah.
President, thank you, and I appreciate your offer to review the Hansard. The primary question from Senator Nampijinka-Price definitely referred to media reports. The supplementary, in referencing those media reports, indicated the role of the chair of the Northern Land Council in those media reports. It is clearly supplementary. It is clearly relevant to the minister's portfolio. I appreciate your offer to review that and, of course, the usual practice of the minister being invited to respond.
Thank you, Senator Birmingham. The first question was ruled out of order. It did not go to the minister's portfolio areas. My assessment of the second question is the same, but as I said to you, I will take that and look at the Hansard, and if I need to address the chamber because I've made the wrong calling, I will certainly do that, and I invite Minister McCarthy to respond if she wishes. Thank you.
Thank you, President. Of course, in any election, whether it's the Northern Territory election or any other across the country, we expect people to act appropriately. I do understand also from those same media reports that the chair of the Northern Land Council has rejected those accusations, Senator Price. And I may also put on, whilst I was wondering whether you were involved in terms of running for the Northern Territory election, and then I realised you wouldn't be because you're running for Prime Minister.
That's right.
That's right. That's right. You're running for Prime Minister. But the problem is you can't run for the Prime Minister. You can't even run. You're not happy with Peter Dutton. You're not happy with Peter Dutton because you want Senator Nampijinpa Price, who wants to be the leader. And the reason why you can't do that, Senator Price, is because you're in the Senate. But the next step might be that you want to leave the Senate. So watch out those in the lower house.
Senator McGrath, withdraw that comment.
Draw.
Thank you. Senator Nampijinpa Price. Order. Order. With the same caveat, if you believe that matters from the minister's response went to her portfolio matter, I invite you to ask a second supplementary.
Thank you, President. Minister, will you investigate the alleged interference by the Northern Land Council in the Northern Territory election and whether any council resources have been used in the election campaign, or will you continue to make a joke of the fact that an Indigenous woman has been targeted quite disgustingly?
Order. 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 Across the chamber. Order. I haven't called you yet, Minister McCarthy. I am going to ask the Senate to be respectful of questions and answers, whether you personally agree with them or not. And I expect when the minister stands to give her response that she will be listened to in respectful silence. Minister McCarthy.
Thank you, President. And I did respond to the question by Senator Price. Of course, we do not want to see any
please
Senator
resume your
McKenzie.
seat, Senator McCarthy. Senator McKenzie, I've just asked for respectful silence. Minister, please continue.
Clearly they're not interested in hearing their response, President. But we know
Senator McGrath,
that throughout any election, whether it's in the Northern Territory or across Australia, that people should treat each other with dignity and respect. And I certainly urge that of all candidates in the Northern Territory.
Minister Wong.
President, I ask that further questions be placed on.
Thank you.